Hello everybody, let's discuss about respiratory volumes and capacities in this video, which is the most challenging part of this chapter for most of the students. So I'll try to simplify this with the mnemonic liter, okay? But before that, let's try and understand the meaning of each term, each volume and each capacity. So for understanding this topic, it is important to visualize and you have to do the process to understand each of the term. So let's start off by the mnemonic liter. So you remember the volumes by this in the same order, LITER. So we know the spelling of liter is LITRE, but here you need to remember it as LITER, right? So L for lung volumes, I for inspiratory reserve volume, T for tidal volume, E for expiratory reserve volume, and R for residual volume. So firstly, we need to understand what is tidal volume. It is very simple. So imagine and do the process as we discuss the definition. So tidal volume is the volume of air which is inspired or expired during normal respiration. So inspire should just perform the activity of inspiration. So normally, okay, so what is the volume of air which is inspired during normal inspiration? That is tidal volume. And the volume of air which is expired during normal expiration, that is tidal volume, right? So you understood the definition of tidal volume. So this tidal volume is equal to 500 ml. Now coming to the next volume, which is IRV, inspiratory reserve volume. So inspiratory reserve volume is the additional volume. So additional volume that we inspire during forceful inspiration. So you take a deep inspiration, okay, trying to inspire forcibly. So the volume, the additional volume that you inspire rather than apart from the normal inspired air, apart from which is the tidal volume, the volume that is additionally inspired is the inspired reserved, the inspiratory reserved volume, and that accounts to around 3000 ml. Similarly, expiratory reserve volume. So once you understand inspiratory reserve volume, understanding expiratory reserve volume is very easy. So expiratory reserve volume is again the additional volume that we expire during a forceful expiration. This is the additional volume, remember, which is the volume of air apart from the tidal volume that is inspired during normal inspiration, right? And the expiratory reserve volume is about 1000 ml. It is about 1100 ml, right? And then coming to the residual volume, which is a vital volume, okay? So this residual volume is the volume that remains in the lungs. So what is the meaning of residual? The something, the volume that is remaining, okay? Residual, the very term residual means a remaining volume. So this residual volume is the volume of air that remains in lungs even after a forceful expiration. So even when you try to expire all the air in the lungs by a very forced expiration, there is a amount of volume that is still left out in the lungs. Not all air is expired or eliminated from the lungs after a forceful expiration. So some volume remains in the lung. That is about 1200 ml. So why there should be a volume of air that is remaining in the lungs even after a forceful expiration? Otherwise the lungs will collapse, isn't it? So this residual volume is absolutely important. It maintains the integrity of the structure of the lungs, right? So as the mnemonic goes, liter IRV is 3000 ml, T is 500 ml, E is 1100 ml, R is 1200 ml. Okay, so residual volume RV is 1200 ml. So why did I tell you this mnemonic? This mnemonic is very useful in finding out the inspiratory capacities. So you don't have to remember the values of inspiratory capacities. So once you know this values of the volumes, lung volumes, you can easily find out the volumes of the capacities. So what is the meaning of capacities? So capacities, they are nothing but they are sum of different lung volumes. So I is the inspiratory capacity is the sum of IRV and TV, the first two. Whereas expiratory capacity is the volume of tidal volume, T and E, tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume. And FRC, functional residual capacity, is the volume of the last two. What is it? Expiratory reserve volume and the residual volume. So by this way you can easily remember the formula of each of the lung capacities. And the last volume, which is the vital capacity VC, which is the volume, which is the sum of the first three, IV, IRV, TV and ERV. So IC, inspiratory capacity, is the sum of the first two, expiratory capacity is the sum of the second and third, whereas FRC is the sum of the last two, and VC, vital capacity, is the sum of the first three. So by this way you can proceed with lot of calculation questions that is asked in MCQs. So now let's try to understand the definition of each of the capacities. So what is inspiratory capacity? So inspiratory capacity is the volume of air that a person can inspire after normal expiration. So during it is the total volume of air that a person can inspire after normal expiration. So perform expire normally and then inspire. So this capacity is the volume that we inspire after normal expiration. Similarly, expiratory capacity, it is the total volume that we can expire after normal inspiration. If it is forceful, okay, if it is after a forceful process, then we call it vital capacity. That is, let me explain. If the volume, vital capacity is nothing but the volume, the total volume or the maximum volume that a person can inspire after forced expiration, that is known as vital capacity. Or in other words, it is the maximum volume that we can expire after a forceful inspiration. This is known as vital capacity. So if the term forceful is present, then we are talking about vital capacity. Understood? Whereas if we are talking about normal inspiration, we are talking about expiratory capacity. If it is after a normal expiration, we are talking about inspiratory capacity. So are you able to understand? Right. So now let's talk about functional residual volume. So functional residual volume. So we know residual volume is the volume, that remains even after forceful expiration. But functional residual capacity is the volume of air that remains in lung after normal expiration. Right. So the capacity, okay, the what is total lung capacity? So total lung capacity is the total volume of total volume of air that can be accommodated in the lungs at the end of a forced inspiration. So when we inspire maximally, the total volume of lung that can be accommodated in the lung is known as total lung capacity, which is the sum of everything: IRV, TV, ERV and RV. Or how else can we express the total lung capacity? First 3 plus RV, right? So what is IRV, TV plus ERV? It is nothing but vital capacity. So we can express total lung capacity TLC as VC plus RV also. So this is important. So the total lung capacity can be expressed in two ways. So this is all about this is all about lung volumes and capacities. So the instrument which is there to assess the pulmonary functions, which is very important clinically, is known as spirometer. So spirometer is the device, whereas spirogram is the representation of the lung volumes, right? So in a spirogram, the upward deflection corresponds to inspiration, inspiratory volumes, whereas downward deflection corresponds to expiratory volumes. By this we can understand the representation of the spirogram. So remember that the lung volume that cannot be measured with the help of spirogram is the ones that involves residual volume, right? So residual volume cannot be measured by the spirometer. Okay. Similarly, what are the other capacities that involve residual volume? First, it is FRC. Okay. Next one, it is total lung capacity. So RV, FRC, TLC, all these cannot be measured with the help of spirometer. So this is all about lung capacities and volumes. So I cannot express the importance of this concept because this gets repeated in the first year MBBS as well, and the spirometry, this is an important question in the university exam, which in fact came in the previous year university exam as well. And for NEET also, there are a number of MCQs, as you can see, which can be framed in this topic. So revise this topic frequently and stay tuned for more such videos.